I want to start with you, Maya. And what I'd love for you to talk about is, can you help the audience understand why we define these attacks as extremism and not just minor disagreements? And I know the Southern Poverty Law Center has done some work on this.
Yes, as you said, we've been monitoring this current wave of the parental rights movement, so-called parental rights movement, since about 2021, that you mentioned. And this is really being led by groups like Moms for Liberty, Parents Defending Education, No Left Turn in Education. And I'll start by saying that at the Southern Poverty Law Center, we do not refer to these groups as parental rights groups, because they do not speak for all parents. They don't even speak for the majority of parents. They're just a vocal minority that are trying to co-opt the terms parents and moms in their crusade against diverse students and inclusive education. So at SPLC, we refer to these as anti-student inclusion groups. So the main narrative of all of the groups that we designate as extremist groups is that public educators, public education, teachers, administrators, librarians are trying to indoctrinate and sexualize children with this radical Marxist agenda. So they push this narrative in various ways. Book bans, which have increased exponentially, and usually have to do with authors or characters of color or in the LGBTQ plus community. They combat LGBTQ plus acceptance in and out of school, so the use of preferred pronouns. We've seen a lot of policies passed against where transgender students can use restrooms, locker rooms, transgender athletes, things like that. An exponential increase in anti-DEI and CRT legislation. We've also seen a lot of these groups call for the abolition of the Department of Education altogether, at the state level and the federal level. And finally, there's been a real push for school privatization, which what this is all about, and school vouchers. And this is really a holdover from 70 years ago, Brown v. Board, massive resistance, when all this came up in segregation academies. So what SPLC is doing to fight back? I worked with the Intelligence Project. So last year was our first time ever listing any of these types of groups on our hate map. So they are now listed as anti-government extremist groups. We have our Learning for Justice department, which works directly with educators and caregivers on how to teach hard histories in schools and at home. We have our legal arm, which works to fight school vouchers. They work on behalf of students and teachers. We have a number of lawsuits going right now representing students and teachers. We also have our policy arm, which works against state and federal legislation against LGBTQ plus students and community, anti-DEI and CRT legislation, and book ban legislation, which is huge right now.